TV7 Israel News is made possible thanks to your generous donations. Shalom, good evening. This is TV7 Israel News broadcast to you from Jerusalem, and in today's top stories. Israeli Defense Minister Benny Gantz holds a series of situation assessments amid an uptick in Palestinian acts of terror throughout the West Bank regions of Judea, Samaria, and the Jordan Valley. Israeli Prime Minister Yair Lapid highlights Jerusalem's unwavering backing for the IDF's freedom of operational considerations amid U.S. calls for a review of the Israeli military's rules of engagement. The Pentagon cannot confirm whether Iran stole cameras which went missing from U.S. naval sail drones, which the IRGC attempted to steal before U.S. Navy destroyers intervened. Israel's war on terror persists in full force. As part of Operation Wavesbreaker in the West Bank regions of Judea, Samaria, and the Jordan Valley, IDF, ISA or Shin Bet, and Border Police Special Operations Forces conducted counterterrorism activity overnight, at the culmination of which 11 terror operatives were successfully apprehended. It is important to know that while 2 incidents of exchanges of fire and violent clashes were cited, no injuries were reported among the Israeli forces. Nevertheless, during unrelated IDF routine activity adjacent to the West Bank town of Baitin, a Palestinian suspect attacked an IDF soldier with a hammer, injuring him in the face. According to the IDF spokesperson's unit, the soldier responded with live fire toward the suspect and neutralized him immediately. And in addition to the hammer, a knife was found in the Palestinian suspect's possession. Meanwhile, Israeli Defense Minister Benny Gantz attended a string of security assessments and briefings at the IDF Intelligence Directorate, at the culmination of which he highlighted Israel's resolve in confronting terrorists, all the while limiting harm to innocent civilians.
I conclude the situation assessment and an array of briefings on all of the sectors. Later in the day, I will conduct a situation assessment focused on the Palestinian sector in light of the rise in the number of terror attacks. Our excellent intelligence, which we created by our excellent people, prevents terror attacks and saves lives. By means of accurate intelligence and battle methodologies, which we developed, we are acting in the most pinpointed way against terror, protect the citizens of Israel, and limit harm to non-involved civilians.
Jerusalem's top defense official further highlighted that when it comes to Israel's rules of engagement, which includes the framework in which lethal force is allowed to be used, the IDF Chief of General Staff is the only one who can make decisions on the matter based on operational considerations in conformity with the IDF's moral code of purity of arms.
The Chief of General Staff and he alone decides and will continue to decide the rules of engagement based on operational necessities and IDF morals, which include the purity of arms. The commanders and troops follow these orders and directives attentively. Never, nor will there ever be, political interference on this matter.
The remark by Defense Minister Gantz was made in response to American calls on Israel to closely review its policies and practices on rules of engagement that after the IDF released its final conclusions from its investigation into the shooting incident, which resulted in the death of Al Jazeera journalist Shirin Abu Akleh, which concluded, quote, "It is not possible to unequivocally determine the source of the gunfire which hit Ms. Abu Akleh. However, there is a high possibility that Ms. Abu Akleh was accidentally hit by IDF gunfire that was fired towards suspects identified as armed Palestinian gunmen during an exchange of fire in which life-risking, widespread, and indiscriminate shots were fired toward IDF soldiers." The report further asserted, however, that another possibility which remains relevant is that Ms. Abu Akleh was hit by bullets fired by armed Palestinian gunmen. Despite the inconclusive report, the Biden administration evidently chose to reprimand Israel by immediately calling for accountability and applying pressure on Jerusalem to change the IDF's rules of engagement.
So We continue to underscore the importance of accountability in this case, and we're going to continue to press our Israeli partners to closely review its policies and practices on rules of engagement and consider additional steps to mitigate the risk of civilian harm, protect journalists, and prevent similar tragedies in the future.
Jerusalem is infuriated by Washington's statements, with some labeling them as tainted by political considerations aimed at appeasing a domestic American audience. One senior defense establishment official who spoke to TV7 on condition of anonymity deplored the American position for selectively choosing to focus on the inability to rule out responsibility of the Israeli troops rather than the circumstances in which the regrettable event occurred. Thankfully, the Israeli leadership is united in its position. Speaking at the naval officers' graduation ceremony, Israeli Prime Minister Yair Lapid reaffirmed Jerusalem's commitment to back its forces based on facts and not for politically motivated international applauses.
As of today, your duty is to protect us, but it is also the duty of the country to protect you. I hear the calls to prosecute IDF soldiers following the death of Shirin Abu Akleh. I hear the calls to change our rules of engagement. Israel has expressed sorrow over her death. It was a tragedy that transpired in an incident in which there was heavy enemy fire. The IDF never intentionally shoots at innocent people. We are deeply committed to freedom of the press and to some of the most stringent rules of engagement in the world. But to be clear, I will not allow an IDF soldier that was protecting himself from terrorist fire to be prosecuted just to receive applause from abroad. No one will dictate our rules of engagement to us when we are the ones fighting for our lives.
The Israeli transitional prime minister went on to address Iran's growing encroachment in the region, including in waterways to the south, where Iranian naval assets are evidently bolstering their presence.
The ships and soldiers that will be under your command will be sailing against the wind and facing some of the worst threats we know. Off the coast of Lebanon, which is controlled by Hezbollah, off the Gaza shore, and in the Red Sea, where there is a greater and greater Iranian presence. We will not accept this presence. We will not allow Iran and its proxies to become a central player in our maritime arena. They will try to push us to our limits, but that is where you come in, and they know that you are better than they are.
Also addressing the Naval Officers Corps graduation ceremony, IDF Chief of General Staff Lieutenant General Aviv Kochavi, for his part, seized the opportunity to highlight the unique characteristics of the Israel Defense Forces.
The IDF is a unique military, starting with the fact that it is the people's army, and continuing to contending with 6 complex sectors simultaneously, and in each of those, the duty to defend, deter, attack for removing of threats, and to prevail in times of campaigns of wars. The IDF, and within it, the Navy, act for this purpose unceasingly, and events of recent weeks are proof of it. Intercepting enemy drones by the Navy and Air Force in one sector, strikes to neutralize weapons on a weekly basis in another sector, and wide-scale campaign in the Gaza Strip or wide-scale arrests on a daily basis to foil terror in Judea and Samaria, in the most complex places, frequently under fire, in the most professional and moral manners, with great efforts, and most successful, to avoid harming non-involved individuals. These events illustrate time and again the IDF's capabilities, and these will be activated in every sector in accordance with determined needs, in the south, center, and in the north, and every time when the enemy threatens the citizens of the State of Israel and will harm or attempt to harm its sovereignty.
Turning to the Red Sea, where Iranian naval assets attempted to steal 3 naval sail drones of the U.S. Fifth Fleet last week, yet a prompt response by U.S. destroyers caused the Islamic Revolutionary Guards Corps to release the sophisticated American assets. The incident marks the second such attempt in less than a week apart, as negotiations over Tehran's nuclear deal with world powers hang in the balance. Asked whether there was a connection between the uptick in blatant Iranian aggression against U.S. interests in the Middle East to the deteriorating state in which the nuclear talks find themselves, Pentagon Press Secretary Brigadier General Pat Ryder said the following.
We do not see the two as connected. Again, as you're aware, in the case of the sail drones, we did recover the drones, and it's just another example of Iranian activity in this region that is unprofessional and problematic. And so certainly we'll continue to keep an eye on that front. But again, to answer your question, we do not see those two as connected.
It is worth noting that following the Iranian release of the American sail drones, it has been revealed that the cameras on the sophisticated maritime surveillance systems went missing.
I can confirm that the cameras were missing. These are unclassified, unsensitive, off-the-shelf technology in terms of what specifically happened to them. I don't have that information, so no, I can't confirm that Iran took them.
Thank you for watching TV7 Israel News. It is important for us to highlight that TV7 Israel is a donation-based ministry. Therefore, if you're blessed by our productions, please consider making a financial contribution that in turn will enable us to sustain our ongoing operations. Additionally, I would like to encourage you, pray for our persecuted brothers and sisters worldwide, and for the peace of Jerusalem and salvation of Israel. I'm Jonathan Essen wishing you an Erev Mevorach, and we will see you again tomorrow at the same time.